Good Monday makers. It's time for another episode of our weekly build roundup series. We do this every Monday to showcase projects that have been shared in the MakerPipe community. We've got all kinds of great builds today. Let's jump right in and check them out. First up is this modular batting cage built by Dino. And the first thing that he shared was this video where he basically just kind of walks around the main part of the frame here. And you can see that he built this conduit structure. I imagine he just used 90-degree connectors in the corners. That's usually how you should make, just simple cube structures. And so he's got those in the corners. Needed some 45-degree bracing and basically just built a batting cage. And this is, I'd say, like half of it. And I think the reason it's modular is so he can actually store it in his garage and then wheel it out into the driveway, or it looks like in the garage here, as you can see. And basically, the two halves roll together and join. And then he also built a kind of a guard so he can stand behind it and pitch to his son, which is awesome. He did it all with the MT conduit and maker pipe connectors. And the frame is actually pretty simple overall. As we said, he just basically built the cube structure and basically did the same thing for the middle section here, except I think it's just a little bit longer. And he just continued, doing the 45-degree bracing, which is smart just to add some, support to the structure. And he added some pipe insulation to all of the pieces of conduit in the build and then secured some of the baseball netting to the frame. I imagine with zip ties, it's a real easy way to do it. And because everything has casters on it, he's able to roll it around and put it together in the garage and then kind of stow it away. Because you can imagine you can just kind of shift this a little bit and just have this inside of this cube and kind of store it. And it still take up some space in a garage, but not as if it was one long piece as you have here. So that's cool that he's able to do that and have storage for it, and also have a batting cage that he can do some batting practice with his son. So just really awesome build. So thanks so much, Dino, for sharing that. Really appreciate it. Next up is a storage idea from Frank. And if you've been in Home Depot or Lowe's, you've probably seen these storage containers before. Basically, it's just like a rigid, hard case. Well, I guess that's the brand, but it's like an ABS plastic, so it's a pretty good material to use for something like this. And they've got these bins that you can take out and you can use them for whatever you want. If you've got a bunch of hardware or like nails or bolts and nuts and washers and all kinds of things you want to organize, you can do that. And you can even pull out these bins if you need to use a specific thing and you need to use a lot of it. You can just pull it out and carry it around with you. But what Frank has done is he's used these bins to store his maker pipe components. As you can see, he's got different connectors organized in each of the slots. He's utilizing some of the different sizes for some of the longer connector pieces. He's got some hardware. He's got some accessories, and it's just a really cool idea for storing connectors. If you're doing a lot of projects and you like to keep maker pipe on hand, it's a good thing to do to keep it organized. I definitely don't do a good job at organization. I've just got cardboard boxes just filled to the brim with parts, and I just dig through and look for pieces that I need. So this is a really good idea to kind of avoid that and stay organized and know what you have on hand, especially if if you have like a business or something where you build shelving units for people, whatever it may be, and you need 90-degree connectors all the time. Instead of just like digging through that box of parts, you can look at your organized connector pieces and know that you're running low on a certain thing that you need to restock on. So that's really cool. Thanks so much, Frank, for sharing this. Really good idea. Next up is a build, and this was shared as a review on the T connector. I don't think we got a name, but that's okay. Like I said a few weeks ago, you can share your build anonymously. It's totally fine. But what they did was they built a skeleton kind of support structure for an existing greenhouse that they have. They just wanted to add some support. Maybe the wind was blowing a lot and it was, causing the greenhouse to maybe shift a little bit, or who knows the reason why they wanted to reinforce it. Maybe it was just an added precaution that they wanted to have. But basically, they just used half-inch EMT conduit, maker pipe connectors, and then the 3/4 inch to half-inch adapter shims to build an exoskeleton that, or not an exoskeleton because it's on the inside, but an internal skeleton that just reinforces the greenhouse. You can see that they bent some conduit and just added some verticals and different pipes and connections that are secured in different places. Like this one is secured to the bottom of the greenhouse frame, and this one is at the top. And they just use one hole straps to secure the frame to the greenhouse. And really great idea if you've got an existing structure that you bought a greenhouse kit, or some kind of kit that you want to reinforce. Maybe it's like a canopy or something. We've seen that before as well. You can use conduit and maker pipe to build kind of a skeleton on the inside and reinforce it and add some bracing. So that's a really cool idea. Thanks so much for sharing that. Next up is a build from Eddie, and this is a walkway trellis. You can see it's just a few verticals on the outside of this sidewalk that they have here. And basically, they just use some of the 9-degree connectors and four-way connectors to build a simple structure that just runs alongside the sidewalk and had some verticals. And I would imagine they probably, staked some of the rebar pins in the ground and then slid the conduit over top of it. It's a good thing to do for freestanding structures like this, especially if it's going to be top heavy, which this one is, as you can see, because once they got it built and they got some plants loaded on top of it or kind of growing next to it, it is really loaded down with vines and leaves and plants. And so now they can walk under this, which is really cool. And like I said, now that they've got this, or if they've got this, the verticals supported, then it'll, do well, even though it's top heavy, which is something to keep in mind if you're doing something like this. But looks really great, and just a few connectors, but created this really cool grapevine trellis. As you can see, there's the grapes growing that they can walk underneath in their backyard. So super cool. You can just walk right under it and pick up grapes or pick them out off of the vine right above you, which is awesome. So thanks so much, Eddie, for sharing that. Really great build. Next up is a project from Rick, and this is a light matrix mount that he made. This is really cool. You can see he's got this light matrix on the front, and that's connected to a structure that he made to support it with EMT conduit and maker pipe. And I think it's just a series of T connectors. I think he just did a rectangle around the matrix with T connectors and conduit. And then from there, he just added T connectors at an angle that go down and connect to a pipe that's on the ground. And basically just created a triangle, as you can see there, and just using all T connectors and just made a really simple support structure for the light matrix, which is really awesome. And now he's got that attached to the front, and he's got a really awesome American flag light show on the front of this, which is super cool. And it's just really simple with a few connectors. And he said in the message that he sent to us that he used some of the quick clamps to be able to take this apart really easily. So he just opens those quick clamps, takes all the pieces apart, and marks where the connectors go. And then he just stores this, I think, on his front porch, but it's kind of out of the way. And instead of having to keep this whole frame together and taking up a big footprint inside the house or inside of a storage building or garage, he can take it apart and kind of flat pack everything, which is super cool. So thanks so much, Rick, for sharing that. Really great build, and it was really awesome to see. So thanks for sending it in. Next up is a project from Bill, and this is really cool. He's got a company that I think he started after making this for his own personal use. He realized how good of a solution it was and wanted to offer it to people so they didn't have to DIY it, which is really awesome. So this is the spin twist paint rig that he made for painting guitar bodies. And as you can see, it basically spins around in several different ways. So the main part of the body rotates all the way around, so you can rotate the whole frame and the guitar body. And then up here on the handle, this part also rotates, so you can twist the body around. And I think we'll see that here in a moment. Well, there he is, spinning the whole thing around, so you can do the outer edge of the body. But then, as you can see, he just flipped that over, and now we can paint that side of the body, and then he can flip it over and do the rest of the guitar, which is super cool. He's got some bearings in here. I'm not sure which bearings he's using. He had to put this together to be able to sell it, which is really awesome. Took some ingenuity, which is always cool to see. And basically, just as you can see at the bottom here, it's just a bent conduit frame with a few connectors. Looks like T connectors there, and basically just built this structure. And I think there's like one support pipe in the middle with a bearing, and that's what allows it to spin and rotate all the way around. And then at the top here, that looks like some kind of, sleeve bearing that's over top of the conduit. And it's just a really cool thing that he shared. So really appreciate it. And if you paint guitar bodies, check out his company, Spin Twist Paint Rig. Thanks so much for sharing that, Bill. Awesome build. Next up is a project from Robert, and this is a sunshade that he made for their garden beds. As you can see here, it's really simple. It's just four verticals, and it looks like there's a flange on the bottom or something in the bottom to kind of, holding it in the soil or in the ground. Like I said a minute ago, if you're doing a freestanding structure, you want to add some kind of support at the bottom, whether it's a foot that you have that's buried underneath the ground a little bit, or maybe it's the rebar pins, or maybe you use cable or wire to pull it tight to the ground. Just want to reinforce a freestanding structure if possible. And other than that, it's just really simple. Just the verticals go up, and then there's 90-degree connectors to create the rectangle, as you can see here. Then it looks like they just grabbed some sunshade and wrapped that around the conduit, and then use zip ties to just kind of secure the sunshade material to the frame rails in the whole build, and really simple. But as you can see, there's zip ties all around it, and that holds it in place, which is all that matters. And now the plants have some sunshade, so super cool. Thanks so much, Robert, for sharing that. Really great build and nice and simple, but a great idea nonetheless. Thanks everybody for watching and sharing your projects. If you want to see any of these in more detail, they'll be linked down below. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next video.